Imagine waking up every morning and seeing the world as a place full of problems waiting to be solved. People need better housing. They want faster transportation. They want cheaper food, better technology, safer products, and more convenient services. To you, every unmet need is also an opportunity. POV. You are a capitalist. You believe people should have the freedom to own property, create businesses, invest their money, and benefit from the risks they take. For you, capitalism is not only about money, it is about choice. The freedom to choose where you work, the freedom to sell your skills, the freedom to build something of your own, the freedom to succeed, and also the freedom to fail. You believe no government office can fully understand what millions of people want. Human needs change constantly. One person wants affordable clothes, another wants healthier food, another wants better software, entertainment, education, or medical technology. Instead of asking one authority to decide what everyone needs, you trust millions of individual decisions. Every time someone buys one product instead of another, they send a message. This product is useful. That one is too expensive. This service is convenient. That company needs to improve. Prices, profits, and losses become signals. They tell businesses what people value and where resources are being wasted. To you, profit is not automatically evil. Profit means a business has created something that people are willing to pay for. A bakery earns money because customers want its bread. A software company grows because its product saves people time. A farmer earns income because people need food. An inventor becomes wealthy because millions of people value the invention. You believe that when people are rewarded for useful ideas, they have more motivation to innovate. Why spend years developing a product if success brings no reward? Why risk your savings if someone else can take everything you create? Why accept the possibility of failure without the possibility of profit? You believe incentives matter. People are motivated by many things: pride, ambition, curiosity, competition, the desire to support their families, the desire to prove themselves, the desire to build something that did not exist before. Capitalism gives these motivations somewhere to go. You imagine a young entrepreneur working late at night. There is no large office, no team, no guarantee of success. There may only be a laptop, a small room, limited savings, and an idea that other people think is foolish. That entrepreneur may fail. They may lose money, they may spend years creating something that nobody wants. But if the idea works, it may create jobs, improve lives, and change an entire industry. You believe that person deserves to benefit from the result. They accepted the risk. They organized the resources. They made the decisions. They convinced others to invest. They created something that people voluntarily chose to buy. To you, that is not exploitation. That is value creation. You also believe competition is one of the most powerful forces in society. A company cannot assume customers will stay forever. If prices become too high, another business may offer something cheaper. If the service becomes poor, customers may leave. If the company stops innovating, a competitor may replace it. Competition pushes businesses to improve. It can lead to better products, lower prices, and faster innovation. You do not expect every business owner to be kind. You expect competition, laws, contracts, and consumer choice to create pressure. A business that ignores customers may lose them. A business that wastes money may fail. A business that cannot adapt may disappear. This process can be harsh. But you believe failure also has a purpose. It shows what is not working. A restaurant that nobody wants will close. A useless product will disappear. A company that spends more than it creates cannot survive forever. Failure allows workers, money, buildings, and technology to move toward better ideas. You also believe private property creates responsibility. When people own a home, a farm, or a business, they have a reason to protect it. They invest in it. They maintain it. They think about the future. Ownership gives people independence. Without secure property rights, a government official or political group could take away what people have built. You fear that eliminating private ownership may not eliminate power. It may only transfer power from business owners to the state. And a powerful state may control not only businesses, but also laws, courts, jobs, media, and political participation. For you, economic freedom can protect people from political control. When citizens can own businesses, earn independent incomes, and create institutions outside the government, they are less dependent on political leaders. But then someone challenges your beliefs. They show you a worker who works 50 hours a week and still cannot afford rent. They show you a family avoiding medical care because treatment is too expensive. They show you a billionaire whose wealth increases in one day by more than a worker could earn in a lifetime. They ask you, is this really freedom? You cannot ignore that question. A worker may technically be free to quit, but if quitting means losing food, housing, or healthcare, how meaningful is that freedom? A consumer may technically have choices, but what happens when a few corporations control nearly every option? A small business may technically be free to compete, but what happens when a giant company can lose money for years until every smaller competitor disappears? You realize that capitalism in theory and capitalism in reality are not always the same. The ideal market has real competition. The real market may create monopolies. The ideal worker negotiates freely. The real worker may have very little power. The ideal consumer has accurate information. The real consumer may face misleading advertising, hidden fees, and complicated contracts. You understand that markets can create innovation, but they can also create exploitation. A company trying to maximize profit may cut wages, damage the environment, move production to countries with weaker protections, or sell products that harm people. Profit is a useful signal, but it is not a complete moral system. Something can be profitable and still be harmful. Pollution can be profitable when the public pays the cost. Dangerous working conditions can be profitable when workers have no alternatives. Addictive products can be profitable. A medicine can save lives and still be too expensive for the people who need it. That is why you begin to believe capitalism needs boundaries. Markets require laws. Contracts must be enforced. Fraud must be punished. Monopolies must be challenged. Workers must be protected from dangerous conditions. Companies must pay for the damage they cause. You still support capitalism, but you no longer believe every market result is automatically fair. You understand that the market rewards purchasing power, not always human need. If wealthy people want luxury cars while poor families need medicine, businesses may produce the cars first, not because cars are more important than human lives, but because wealthy customers can pay more. The market answers the question, what can be sold profitably? It does not always answer, what does society need most? Your position becomes more balanced. You support private business, but you also support laws against fraud and corruption. You support competition, but you oppose monopolies. You support profit, but you believe companies should be responsible for their actions. You support individual success, but you do not believe a child should lose access to education because their parents are poor. You do not want the government to control every business, but you accept that government has an important role. It must enforce contracts, protect property, provide courts, build infrastructure, protect workers and consumers, support education, public health, and emergency services. You realize capitalism does not exist without government. Without fair rules, the market does not remain free. The strongest companies may simply write the rules for themselves. You also understand that successful businesses depend on society. Workers were educated somewhere. Goods travel on public roads. Businesses depend on courts, police, electricity, ports, and communication systems. Technology often develops from publicly funded research. No entrepreneur succeeds completely alone. A business may be privately owned, but it still depends on workers, customers, institutions, and generations of shared knowledge. You continue to believe inequality will exist. Some people work longer hours, some take greater risks, some develop rare skills, some create products that millions of people value. You do not believe every difference in income is unfair, but you ask how much inequality a society can tolerate. At what point does reward become control? At what point does wealth become political power? At what point does inheritance create a permanent class system? You believe capitalism must offer real mobility. If poor people remain poor, no matter how hard they work, the system loses credibility. If rich people stay powerful even when they fail, the system stops rewarding talent. If corporations keep profits when they succeed but demand government rescue when they fail, that is not true capitalism. That is private profit and public loss. You believe real capitalism requires responsibility. Investors who accept rewards must also accept losses. Businesses must be allowed to fail. Executives should not receive enormous bonuses after destroying a company. Corporations should not be allowed to buy political protection. You also think about the environment. A company can earn profit while passing its costs to everyone else. The factory earns money, the public breathes polluted air, the business sells cheap goods, future generations inherit the damage. You recognize that prices do not always show the true cost, so environmental laws and taxes may be necessary. Not to destroy the market, but to force companies to pay for the consequences of their actions. POV, you are a capitalist. You believe choice is better than command. Competition is better than monopoly. Voluntary exchange is better than forced control. Private initiative is better than waiting for one central authority to approve every idea. But you also know that freedom without rules may become freedom for the powerful to dominate the weak. So you defend capitalism without treating it like a religion. You do not claim that markets solve every problem. You do not claim that every wealthy person earned everything fairly. You do not claim that poverty is always caused by laziness. You believe capitalism works best when success is possible, but failure is survivable. When businesses can grow but cannot own the government. When people can become wealthy but cannot place themselves above the law. When workers can negotiate but are protected from abuse. When consumers have choices but companies cannot deceive them. When property is secure but ownership does not give anyone permission to destroy a community. Your capitalism is not a jungle without rules, it is a playing field. The rules must be clear. The referees must be independent. No player should be allowed to buy the referee. No company should be powerful enough to remove every competitor. And no person who loses should be forced to starve outside the field. You want competition, but you also want fairness. You want freedom, but you also want responsibility. You want progress, but you also want dignity. Because capitalism is not valuable simply because it creates wealth. It is valuable only when that wealth expands human possibility. When it gives people more choices, more independence, better technology, better lives, and a greater ability to shape their own future. POV, you are a capitalist. You believe society moves forward when people are free to ask, what can I create? What problem can I solve? What risk am I willing to take? And most importantly, what can I build that other people will freely choose to value? Die Assumption ba sete jatsat.